What's going on, guys? Care of Your Reptiles here. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and share, as it's really been helping with the algorithm. I really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to be going over a couple things that I have learned about keeping blood pythons in enclosures, just within the few months that I have been keeping these guys. So my original plan, my go-to was, before I knew anything about enclosure setups, my go-to plan was I was going to set it up how I set up my ball python enclosures, which if I can, I'll go ahead and drop some pictures of those in here. They were really nice setups, but as we all know, ball pythons are semi-arboreal. So if you provide them the opportunity to climb on things, they definitely will. So that's what they did, and that's how I had their enclosure set up. So when I got this guy, that was the route that I was going to go with him until I had a very good conversation with someone, and they let me know that there are a bunch of potential dangers and risks that you can run with giving these guys the opportunity to climb, since they definitely are a heavy-bodied snake, and they don't do anything but just get even heavier in size as they grow. So after figuring out how big that they really get, that definitely deterred me from my original plan. I was going to have vines going all over the place. And people that are watching, if you guys know how big blood pythons get, I just couldn't even imagine these guys attempting to climb on vines. So if you do want to provide your blood python the opportunity to climb on something, I'd go ahead and give them some corkwood, something like that, but nothing that they can really elevate themselves off the ground, just because if they do fall, I haven't experienced a blood of mine falling, but I could just imagine how bad they can be. Definitely there's going to be a vet run there, if not, a unalived snake, which is definitely something that you don't want to deal with. So to altogether avoid that risk, don't provide them anything to climb or something like corkwood. Another thing that I learned that kind of falls in line with that is the simpler the enclosure, the easier and more efficient it is to maintain. So these guys, their enclosures, I don't do anything except a mixture of reptichip and sphagnum moss. That's the substrate layer. It's about 4 to 5 inches, just because they do love to burrow. So since they do love to burrow, I'm going to give them that opportunity. I've seen a ton of keepers and breeders use rack systems. There's nothing wrong with that. And they don't use substrate. I've seen a bunch of them use paper. So if you are that person, these guys, they love to burrow, but if you are keeping a very large amount of these guys, the substrate is not a must. It's not a must-have if you are breeding on a large scale or keeping at a large scale. But I can't see myself ever getting to that stage, so I want to be as naturalistic as possible as I can with this species. So the substrate is reptichip, sphagnum moss. I mix it together, and I give them a nice thick layer of it. Each of them on each side of their enclosure, they have a black hide. He has the extra large one, just because that's the size that he can fit. Leviathan, he has a small, and Hera, she has a medium. But they have the black hides, on each side of their enclosures, just so whenever they feel the need to, want to be secure, have a nice sense of security, and not have to burrow, they can definitely come up above the substrate and hide when they want to. That's what Brock does most of the time. So he does burrow quite a bit, but he also is above his substrate quite a bit. So the fact that he is above his substrate quite a bit, I like giving him that opportunity to go ahead and be somewhere where he feels secure without having to be underground, in a sense. Another thing that I learned as far as the enclosures is the humidity. So these guys need a pretty high level of humidity, somewhere between 60 to 75%. It is okay to let it drop in the 50s, But you really don't want to let that happen. I get it, we're human, we make mistakes, we can't stay on top of things 24/7, so it is going to happen eventually. It's happened for me quite a few times, like maybe 4 or 5 so far, but that's pretty good for keeping these guys for about 4 months now. But whenever you see it dropping, if you catch it at 55, I'd immediately mist down your enclosure. I wouldn't pour water like they recommended for ball pythons and some other species, but I would mist it and then just mix it together, bump that humidity back up whenever you see it dropping. We're getting pretty low. I normally mist it now. I'm pretty adamant about the humidity level, so I check it pretty often. Whenever I see it hit 60, I'm doing my best to get it back to 70. Somewhere in between that 60 to 70 range is where I'm trying to get it back to, just because I don't like it going into the 50s. Again, it's okay if it happens, but you don't want it to. So if you can do, like, whatever you can do to prevent that from happening, keep it in the 60 to 75% range. Another thing that I learned with these guys is rock structures. So that's something that I was going to do inside of their enclosures. I was going to do like rock setups just for kind of decor. It was really nothing for them. But I do know that that is common with keepers in their enclosures. So if you are the person that you absolutely have to have rocks inside of your enclosures, that's a staple for you in your setups, just make sure that whatever you do, those rocks are not able to be moved. You don't want your snake going underneath them, especially since these guys burrow. You don't want your blood python going underneath your rocks and their rock moving and potentially falling on top of your snake, crushing your snake, killing your snake, unfortunately. But that is definitely something that you don't want to happen. So again, to prevent that from happening altogether, don't put rocks in the enclosure. But if you are that person that just has to have them, make sure that they're either like super glued in place or siliconed or something. Just make sure that they cannot move, especially with these guys, since they go underneath the rock. Another thing that I learned is PVC setups are better than glass setups. So it's kind of controversial. People say that glass setups don't hold humidity pretty well. In my opinion, they hold humidity very well, but how can I put it? They hold humidity very well, but a lot of glass setups have too much ventilation, which allows that humidity to escape. So if you have a glass setup and it's got like a screen top or something, a method that you could use to hold that humidity in is throw some aluminum foil tape on top, except where either your heat lamp or your ceramic heat emitter or your deep heat projector, those type of heating elements, wherever those are going to be at, don't put the aluminum foil tape where those are going to be at. You still want those elements to be able to get inside of your setup. But if you have a screen top, I'd sit those heating methods on top, and then I'd go ahead and put the aluminum foil tape wherever it needs to go. But glass setups, they're okay, but PVC enclosures are a lot better because they allow for ventilation and a nice level of humidity. Brock, he has a PVC setup, and my juveniles, they are in glass setups right now, but that's because they do have PVCs coming soon. And with them, I can't really upgrade the way I want to now. That's another thing with these guys. You can't really throw a juvenile in a 4x2x2 enclosure or a 5-foot or 6-foot enclosure like you would a ball python early on. So you can get a juvenile ball python and throw them in the biggest setup that you can find, as long as you can provide enough clutter, climbing spaces, hides, etc. for that snake. Juvenile bloods typically do better in smaller setups. They're like tighter spaces. And I had one of my guys, Leviathan, he was kept in a tub before he came here. And I tried the tub with him, but I couldn't get him to eat. I get that aren't really active at the age that he was when I got him. So I wasn't expecting him to move around a lot at all, but it was just the fact that he wouldn't eat for me. So I was like, okay, let's try something different. So I had a 36 by 12 by 18 glass setup with front opening doors, and it already had the aluminum foil tape on top to where I can still provide my heat elements and hold humidity very good. So I had one of those laying around, and I put them in there, and I believe it was like 3 days until I was gonna offer him some food again. So 3 days pass, it comes feeding day, and he eats. And not only does he eat, 2 days later after he digests, I've noticed him out and about roaming his enclosure. So juvenile bloods, they do like tighter spaces, but it also depends on your specific snake. So you may have a snake that loves to be in the tub. He doesn't like the light or anything like that. He loves to be in a very small confined space. But mine, he likes the space. He likes well, I provided him the opportunity to roam, to where if he gets too cool, he can have a hot side to go to. If he gets too warm, he can have a cool side to go to. He has a bowl big enough for him to soak. He has he's got 2 highs in there. He's also got like a log that he can go underneath. So just lots of opportunity in there for him. But those are the few things that I have learned about enclosure setups while keeping these guys. I appreciate you guys for watching, and as always, take care of your reptiles.